And we're live.
Hey everyone, welcome to Just Between You and Me. I'm Michael.
And I'm Michelle. And today we're talking about self-acceptance. And that's a big thing.
Yeah, it's huge. So for me, self-acceptance is intimately tied to self-love.
Mm-hmm.
And it's intimately tied to recognizing that we are born into this life in parts and pieces, as well as in wholeness simultaneously. It's kind of a paradox. And to accept self completely and to love self completely is to accept the parts and pieces that are not always necessarily on the same page. So sometimes we may have a part of ourselves that's completely contradictory to what we believe or think or even believe that we should think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a lot to rejecting these parts of ourselves on the surface that actually rejects the value that they bring forward to, what is their content.
Yeah, I think the idea of self-rejection is really born out of this idea that we have to think good thoughts. And if we think good thoughts, then things will positively work for us. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that if you come into the acceptance of self, if we come into the acceptance of self, more of us is available, more of our personality, more of our realness, more of us is available to move throughout the world and create what we want to create in the world.
Yeah, and these are later videos, what I'm about to say, but it's intimately tied to emotional processing.
Yeah.
And the self-love journey of going from admitting to yourself that you don't feel like loving yourself about these certain alignments or parts and pieces of yourself that are contradictory. It's really huge and necessary to go through that emotional process to get to the self-love.
I think one of the major tenets of self-acceptance is giving voice to things that we think will consume us. And it's fascinating because I see time and time again is when someone names a thing that's going on with them, it suddenly gives them control over it. So if I'm saying, oh gosh, man, I've got so much work to do. It's such a big deal. It's so overwhelming. It's so, but then if I name it and I say, I've got to do X project by X date, suddenly I have the power to do that thing by that time. And that's an example of an external thing, but an internal thing is no different. It's no different to say, I don't like the I'm only thinking of external things. I'm trying to find an internal
Here's
thing.
An internal thing.
Here's an internal thing.
I don't like this part of myself that is just making myself small around other people and feeling like I'm just too small. So let's just use that example of someone feeling like, hey, I don't love myself enough to make room for myself around others. Mm-hmm. So
the naming of it is I'm making myself small so that others have the space, because if I make myself big, they won't have the space. Yeah. And naming it, then you suddenly think of, well, wait a second. If I take up room, does that mean someone else doesn't get to take up room?
Yeah, and I think what you're really speaking to is the power of naming the thing and seeing it from different perspectives and just seeing it for what it is, as opposed to just kind of being lost in the heaviness of it and the drama of it. It's okay to be there and go through that, but it's also okay to take a step back and name it and be like, okay, that's what that is. How do I really feel about that? There's more to say of how to process, which we'll get into in deeper videos. But this is an example of a internal dialogue that could go on, that could be where there is what I call self-love block. And navigating those blocks and opening our heart to receive more love from ourselves is intimately the journey to self-acceptance, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I do think self-acceptance is, again, a process. It's not like one day we're going to wake up and be like, I accept me!
Yeah, right?
Today, finally! That's not real.
I mean, it's a great declaration. Say that every day and you'll probably get closer. And there's more work to do.
There's more work to do than just that of letting go of judgment of self. And honestly, the more that you let go of judgment of self, you can then start to let go of judgment of others, because what is present in us, we start to see in other people.
Sure.
So letting ourselves be acceptant of ourselves creates more acceptance in the world for everyone.
Absolutely. It starts with self. So that's our 101 on acceptance for today. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, subscribe. Please share it with your friends if you think they'll be impacted or positively benefited by this. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear what you think, what you want to hear more about. So please interact with us below in the comments or through our Facebook and Instagram or websites. We'd love to hear from you.
All that is in the description down below if you want to contact us. And again, I'm Michelle.
And I'm Michael.
And thanks for joining us today.
On Just Between You and Me.